This is Maha,
And this is Dylan.
and we're the host of That Wasn't Too Hard. And today's episode, we're going to talk to you a little bit about Kanban. Isn't that right, Dylan?
That is. All right. So Maha, I think a lot of people have different conceptions and different ideas about Kanbans. Could you start us off by summarizing what you think a lot of people have in their heads when they think of Kanbans?
Oh dear, oh my. I'm not sure if I can summarize, but I can mention some of the crazy stuff that I've heard about too. I've seen people use Kanbans as basically the all-in-all wish lists of the organization, so something similar to a to-do list. I've definitely seen people use Kanbans as KPIs, which I thought was quite an interesting approach. Good for them, but I don't know if that would work for kind of larger companies for sure. And I've definitely seen Kanbans, well, to be honest, I've seen Kanbans be used on a personal basis, which I thought was actually quite neat. Not only to separate between kind of personal and non-personal projects or personal work projects, but to even separate things such as house duties, interestingly enough.
Sure. And in that case, did you see them mostly as used as to-do lists, just like chores or honeydew or in that space?
Pretty much. I mean, if you have about 12 items in your back burner, it's a Trello, I would say, which I thought.
Sure.
And Trello is one of those things that a lot of people used to tell me are Kanbans, actually.
Right. Yes. Well, that's how it got popular. So fair enough. I think it's very popular. It's a very hip thing to say in the software development space. I think software developers, instead of a feature wish list or something, they'll say Kanban for their Scrum Master, or it's the hip way to talk about software development. Have you seen that?
I've seen it as well. I mean, I've seen it in my previous organization too. We were trying to convince a lot of organizations to become agile. So we've kind of convinced them to use Kanban as well when it comes to a lot of roles, responsibilities, and to help them with flow for sure, actually. So definitely seen it be used in the functional space and not just in the software engineering space.
Gotcha. Okay, perfect. Hold on, I have an itch. Okay.
I don't think we should remove that, by the way. I'm not removing that.
Well, I will trust you to do a good job. Okay.
Okay. So tell me a little bit more, maybe, Dylan, from your experience on what a Kanban is. So where did that even originate from? And, who had a problem? Who solved it with the Kanbans?
Yeah. So it started in Japan with the Toyota production system. As we talked about last week, they were trying to solve a problem with cost of inventory. They did not have the funds. They didn't have the size to do this kind of like the line must keep running system, and with lots of inventory sitting by the sides to make sure the line kept moving.
Shameless plug to episode 1.
Yeah, shameless plug to episode 1. And what they ended up doing is they realized if we're trying to reduce all this unnecessary inventory of subassemblies or partially finished stuff sitting around our warehouse, because there's cost tied up in that, they need to restrict the inventory that gets produced by different processes, different manufacturing stations along the way.
So Dylan, how did that actually look like on the plant site? How did they end up even measuring that flow?
Right. So I think part of what helped them figure this out is considering their manufacturing as a set of individual manufacturing stations or unit processes. Parts come in one side, maybe parts A come in one side and you create parts B. And then somebody else needs parts B and they turned it into part C. Maybe they need part B and part D and make part C, something like that. And so inventory flows through your manufacturing system, and they started thinking about these unit processes, each with their own supplier and each with their own downstream customer. So throughout the manufacturing floor, there was just people doing manufacturing capacity, and they knew who supplied them, which station, which people supplied them with raw materials, and which stations they supplied.
And how did they actually as well measure that? When you think about maybe that kind of those interesting buckets that you talked to us about last time, or tubs. So let's repeat the question. How about that?
Yeah.
So Dylan, how did a Kanban actually look on site in a lot of factories in Japan?
Sure. So the word Kanban is a Japanese word. It's not English.
What kind of
most people probably figured that out. But it's just a tub, right? It's just a place where you put the supplies for your station. And so often maybe it was a tub, maybe it was bigger, it was a rack or something, depending on the size of the raw materials that supplied the next station. And the key to a Kanban is, I mean, anyone can have a tub. Right? Tubs and baskets and like containers for things have been around for 10,000 years, right? What makes a Kanban different is there's little like stickers or pieces of tape on it. So there's a low sticker and a high sticker. And so the rule of the Kanban is you cannot overfill your tub. You may not go above the high sticker, or maybe if it's a
So Dylan, if we want to talk about inventory and how that looked like, how did the inventory actually flowed through a Japanese manufacturing plant, car manufacturer?
Sure. So if you have all these unit workstations, the sub-assemblies or each piece that's manufactured in each needs to get to the next place, but you don't want to build too much. And so if you envision this like workstation, this manufacturing workstation, it's got like a bucket for the supplies, the raw material. Maybe it's a rack with like, I don't know, 8 slots for that can fit the sub-assemblies they're going to work on. When you take one off and you do your stuff and then you're done with it, right? You put it on the other side. So a Kanban is just like a basket or a tub or a rack, but it's got lines on it. It's got little pieces of tape on the top and the bottom. And so the bottom line says it's always got to be at least this full. And the top line says you cannot be more full than this. And what that does is it fundamentally limits anyone's ability to manufacture to produce more than the top line. And you can imagine how, like, when you're just starting out on a manufacturing, you're trying to drive down the cost of inventory, the excess inventory you're leaving around. The Kanban might start high, and then through maybe continuous improvement, you're going to lower the top bar because you're going to be tighter and tighter. You can more resilient to make sure this station can keep producing with less and less excess inventory to maintain their resilience.
So single unit flow, eventually. That's kind of the optimal. That's the optimal kind of reach and the optimal solution, right? So to be able to kind of start with that tape and eventually be so efficient and on your process basically so improved that you end up into single process flow. So Dylan, how did something like the Kanban, a Japanese invention, actually look like on American on American soil.
Yeah, that was a tough transition, I think, for a lot of manufacturers in America, because they were used to this, the line has to keep moving. And it was especially hard for them, or we could say especially easy for Toyota, because Toyota had this culture where everyone was accountable and respected. And so this allowed each line worker to kind of be responsible for filling the bucket of their suppliers and not overfilling it. Right. And like they were trusted to do that. And in American car or manufacturing in general, we don't have that historic cultural approach where it's more focused on you get like expert consultants to come in and tell you what's wrong and how to improve.
Let's not touch on that. Thank you again, Dylan, for today. And thanks to our guests for tuning in. We hope that you enjoyed our content. And if you have, don't forget to click like, subscribe, and follow on any of your favorite platforms or wherever you get your podcasts. And until then, see, that wasn't too hard. Close enough. I like it. I'm keeping it. Thank you again, everyone, and have a good day.